Now, on a lighter way, I was discussing this very same issue with a very senior bureaucrat, and he gave me a very interesting answer to this. And he told me that unfortunately what happens is, say the issue has come up in Bombay, where the regulators or the officers discuss this issue, and it goes to Delhi, where the say the deputy secretary or the secretary who is the lawmaking authority says he's a South Indian. So you have thought in your professional way there is other problems. What happens is, the person who thinks, again, this is nothing to do with any religion, caste or otherwise, but what happens is we think it differently, and when we write the language is our vernacular language. It's not the perfect English language. So therefore, if you see the classic example is, you look at the old English, the existing Companies Act and look at the new Companies Act, you will see the vast difference in the language itself. Every person, say a person of Orissa will write differently. A person of South Kerala will write differently. Tamil person will write differently. So he will write because he understands. He has learned English language differently. What we will do. So this is also going to be an hazard. Now he may not want to be a negative writing it. He may not want to write negatively, but it may just come out. But you are right. Honestly speaking, yes, we are currently, friends, we are living in an unfortunate era, or we are going through an unfortunate era where everything is looked up in suspicious. You even go to courts, no matter whatever genuine matter you may have, the courts will look to you with suspicion. The income tax authorities, regulators will look to you with suspicion. Not only that, you go home, you talk to your wife, she will look to you with suspicion.
Already they are prejudiced.
When your wife talks to you, you will look to with suspicion. Like on the right side now.
She will be very much suspicious talking to us.
So suspicious behavior is becoming part of our day-to-day behavior or culture now. Only I guess I have very hope on one aspect to answer your query. I am not given up. I am a very positive person. I strongly believe that we are in a friends, you don't mind if you slightly divert. This is diversion. What will happen is, I would like to believe that we are in a stage of evolution. Since 1991 onwards, we are evolving. See, we didn't have foreign equity in banking. We didn't have insurance. So all those sectors have got opened up. Suddenly you have seen in the GDP, almost 60% of the revenue comes from service sector. Service sector is completely new animal altogether. It is just expanding and growing like anything. So we are in a tremendous, we are like amoeba. Amoeba grows wherever there is a space. There is no shape for amoeba. So our economy and our behavior or our pattern of doing business is like amoeba. Wherever we see growth, we grow there. So therefore, you will find an erratic movements or shapeless economy or shapeless behavior. But information technology is going to put all these things in place. Why and how? Let me explain it. For example, the 2G spectrum issue, or just take a classic example of the sale of the natural resources of the government. We know that yes, in 2G we made mistake. We know that in mines we made mistake. So therefore the corrective process will be put. So there will be first mistake. There will be first, but not mistake, but blunders. There will be errors. There will be frauds in the first instance. But the age of information technology, the 250 or 300 channels which are observing you every minute, every sentence. Look at yesterday, one politician just made a statement that you just remove ink from second finger and you go. You know how much of chaos it created. So information technology, the media and the media today is putting everything under transparent filters. So therefore, a stage will come where all these things, basic issues will get ticked off. At a certain time, a stage will come where you will find everything more or less. Now, for example, the college educations have come into the online forms. You don't need to go to colleges and collect the forms, everything is online. So in technology, information technology, the television, the channels, the press, the media, press, everything will have its own focus. 20, 30 years back, there was no such televisions. So I want to believe, I would like to believe that a time will come when technology and information technology and this kind of media is going to take a lot of corrective steps. You know, it's not so easy today to commit a crime and hide it under the wraps. You see, the last 10 years, all those who amassed wealth are all behind bars. In the last 10 years, you see the new economy, the large corporations who amassed massive wealth, we don't need to name them, but all are behind bars. In how many years? Hardly 10 years of time. Okay. So does that answer your question? We have to have hope against hope. Okay. Now, for the first time, if you do a merger of a listed company to unlisted, section permits you to remain unlisted for some time. That's section 222. I'll do little fast because I would like to take some questions. Prohibition on treasury stock. Again, if you see couple of mergers in the last couple of years, where virtually every merge it is becoming a norm that every merger where there is a cross shareholding, people want to put those shares in treasury stock so that they can make some more money and distribute to shareholders. It was nothing wrong in that. It was again an innovative scheme to take advantage of the merger, to my mind. So again, that is being stopped by the regulators. So you can't have shares in treasury stocks. Minorities. This is a new provision which has come out. If you hold 90% or more of the share capital of any company by virtue of amalgamation, share exchange, or for any other reason, if you go beyond 90%, you could squeeze the minority. But again, the challenge out there is it says. At a price determined on the basis of valuation by a registered valuer in accordance with the rules as may be prescribed. So we'll have to again wait for the SEBI rules what comes out with, because it's not going to be simple. So any squeeze out, any acquisition of minority shareholder is going to be subject to the regulations. Now, under 230, this was not there earlier, but when you go to the process of merger or amalgamation, if the tribunal feels that minority shareholders needs to be protected or needs to be given an exit, the tribunal could insist on you, on the promoters of the company, that you must give exit to the minority shareholders. This is a very interesting provision, the threshold objection. Earlier any shareholder could go to the High Court and file an objection, challenge this scheme of amalgamation or merger. Now today, unless you are holding not less than 10% shareholding or have outstanding debt of not less than 5% total outstanding debt, you can't file a objection to the scheme. Now, I don't know whether SEBI will like this, because SEBI always wants a minority shareholder to object to the scheme, or SEBI wants protection of the minority shareholder. Now friends, this minority protection, I have a very specific say on this, and I have been very vocal on this. Yes, minority shareholders needs protection, is fine. But look at the minority shareholder, or look at, again, I am not a pro-promoter, I want to look at very objectively to this situation. When you announce a merger or amalgamation to which a minority shareholder is objecting, assuming he is objecting and it is a valid objection, what would happen? Post-merger, he has the first opportunity to sell off the shares. The first person to sell because of the merger or amalgamation will be the minority shareholder. The promoter shares are locked in, first of all. He cannot sell shares of the company because of merger or amalgamation. So therefore, what is the benefit? Even if the minority shareholder who has objected to the scheme fights tooth and nail, believe me, he fights tooth and nail and objects to the scheme, and the scheme is objected, cancelled. Assuming it is cancelled and thrown in the dustbin basket, next day that minority shareholder sells off and walks off from the company. Whose benefit has the scheme been cancelled? Who has benefited? Will the law provide that the minority shareholder should have a lock-in if he is objecting to the scheme, and if he is not allowing? A majority who is passing the scheme, a minority shareholder is objecting, and the court, SEBI says that yes, the objection of minority shareholder needs to be heard. I'll just come back to that very interesting provision. I want to talk something more on this SEBI circular. Since this SEBI circular of 4th February, this was subsequently modified in May. In nutshell, let me explain you what the provision SEBI wanted to do. SEBI wanted to introduce a concept. Friends, I'll tell you, I have written on this, in fact, on this very issue, that this was illegal provision. This was patently illegal provision from issued by SEBI. What did it say? It said that once you the steps, you go to stock exchange, file a draft scheme. Stock exchange then receives comments from various shareholders and passes on the scheme to SEBI. SEBI then gives observation letter and you go back to the company. And then company goes to the High Court and files a scheme. SEBI wanted in that earlier resolution, earlier notification, SEBI said that it will be passed. You have to provide in the scheme a provision to state that out of the minority shareholders, hear me carefully, friends, out of the minority shareholders, people who have objected to the scheme, identify them, and you must get twice the number from those minority shareholders in support of the scheme. Only then the scheme will go through. Friends, you will not believe me because I think I should read out that provision. To what extent can SEBI go? It is 5.16 of the first circular. I will read out. Approval of the shareholders to scheme through postal ballot and e-voting. Listed company shall ensure that the scheme submitted with the Honorable High Court for sanction provides for obtaining shareholders' approval through special resolution passed through postal ballot and e-voting after disclosure of all material facts in the explanatory statement sent to the shareholders in relation to such resolution. This first part is illegal because under the High Court, under section 391, all that the law requires is majority in number and 3/4 in value. And SEBI is saying, I want to pass a special resolution. What should I do? Section requires me majority in number, 3/4 in value, and SEBI is saying pass special resolution. So this is contradictory, number one. Now comes the interesting part. The scheme shall also provide that the special resolution shall be acted upon only if the votes cast by public shareholders in favor of the proposal amount to at least 2 times the number of votes cast by public shareholders against it. So imagine a situation, you are 75% promoter shareholder in the company. You have slogged for generations and raised the company. And you propose a merger or amalgamation. You go to the High Court, majority in number, 3/4 in value, all creditors, everyone has approved, High Court has put a stamp, everything is done and sealed. And you are ready. And now comes the provision that look, but the scheme has to provide that this special resolution shall not be acted upon. You cannot act upon this scheme unless you find out from the public shareholders whether the votes cast are twice or not. Which means what are you proposing? You are proposing that forget the High Court, forget the shareholders, forget the credit, forget everyone. After the scheme is sanctioned, you have to have a provision which says that I will identify from the public shareholder whether there are twice number have voted, twice positive votes are voted against the negative votes. Is this provision illegal? Was this to stand? This was an illegal provision because this was complete contrary to the Companies Act. So immediately SEBI, when people raised these issues, SEBI came out with a suggestion that this 516 is modified. Just modify this 516. Now what is the modified 516? This provision, they are saying such scheme shall provide that the schemes shall be acted upon only if the votes cast in the votes cast by the public shareholder in favor of the proposal are more than twice. Now which cases they are saying where if the scheme allots additional shares to the promoters, or if it is a scheme which involves a listed company and the promoter companies, which means they are saying that if there is a related party transaction in a scheme of arrangement, or if the promoters are getting undue advantage, then you go to this. To my mind, friends, this is not illegal, but this is not correct. The reason for this is, if I was to issue additional shares to the minority shareholders, then what happens? Then will the minority shareholders stay away from the resolution? It is just because the promoters are getting some additional shares, or the promoter entity are getting merged. Will you give a veto? It is like giving a veto right to the minority shareholders. Anyway, so this is the provision of law as on today. So if any scheme of arrangement or amalgamation is giving any benefit to the, not benefit, but if it is getting allotted any shares to the promoters, then this provision will apply. I have covered this. Yeah. I am open to questions like all this.
So the retail company,
Yeah.
the benefits for the Indian economy?
It will depend upon the merger. It will see if you really allow an Indian company to merge with a foreign company, the foreign company will be more committed. So it will be less scrutinized. It will not be subject to a lot of regulatory regime.
You think so?
Well, at least we have to assume that.
They may come out with a different.
Of course. As I said, this is only an elected provision. We don't know what is there up in the sleeve with SEBI or government. I have tried to just capture the basic gist or basic issues arising out of this two chapters, and there will be still lot friends to discuss and deliberate. In the paucity of time, what I have tried to do is I have tried to just catch up those on issues which are new concepts and which will have to deliberate a lot, I guess, over a period of time, and see how regulators react on this and how jurisprudence react on this.
Can there be dual voting? Shareholder votes through a postal ballot also and a court-directed meeting.
No, there can't be dual voting. I guess what SEBI meant to say here is that when a meeting is convened of the shareholders, whoever present physically are present, they will vote physically, and whoever don't want to physically vote, they will vote through postal ballot. So it will be counted only one.
Right. How the track will be kept?
So you'll have to track that. You have to evolve a system where it will be tracked. Any questions? Sujil, any question? I have not spoken about valuations because there is nothing on valuation as such, and you all stand protected by the Supreme Court judgment of Tomco Liver, and it's a very interesting judgment on valuation. So long as that judgment remains, as far as valuation is concerned, you will always be protected.
From a legal point of view.
Yeah, it's a landmark judgment, and what I will do is, instead of explaining, I will just read out to you. It's a very interesting para. I will read out to you just 4 or 5 lines from Supreme Court, and we should constantly, pose these 4 or 5 lines to SEBI always if they talk of anything on valuation. I am just, I'll give citation. It's a very interesting, very famous decision. Tomco versus HNL reported in 1994. 4 company law judgment, but if you just go to Google, you will get the judgment. I'll read out to you, friends, and this will be happening to you. It says the jurisdiction of this was the case where valuation was severely challenged right up to Supreme Court. It was the Tomco merging with HNL. The Supreme Court observes the jurisdiction of the court in sanctioning any merger into is not to ascertain with mathematical accuracy whether the valuation satisfies the arithmetical test. A company court does not exercise an appellate jurisdiction. It is not required to interfere only because the figures arrived at by the valuer was not a better as it would have been if another method would have been adopted. So you are free to adopt any method. What is imperative is that such determination should not have been contrary to the law, and that it was not unfair to the shareholders of the company which was being merged. The court's obligation is to be satisfied that valuation was in accordance with law and it was carried out by an independent body. Now comes the important question. Certainly it is not the part of the judicial process to examine the entrepreneurial activities to ferret out flaws. The court is least equipped for such oversights. What could be more candid assertion by the court? The Supreme Court is saying we are not equipped, we are not competent to comment upon this. The court is least equipped for such oversights, nor indeed it is a function of the judges in our constitutional scheme. We do not think that the internal management, business activity or institutional operation of public bodies can be subjected to inspection by the court. To do so is incompetent and improper and therefore out of bounds. What more can be the clarity on this issue? Supreme Court has time and again said valuation is something which I will never interfere. We are not competent to do that valuation. Every valuer will look to the valuation differently. If you adopt different methods, it will be different methodology. And subsequently, in Mir Mofatwal's judgment of the Supreme Court has said that we will only see whether the rules are followed correctly or not. We are not here to see how the game is being played of cricket. That's the Supreme Court. So, to my mind, valuation will always remain in the realm of your exclusive authority. I don't think so. See, SEBI may say whatever I am telling you, whatever they may say. Unless they come out with a suggestion, and this is what I had also recommended them when they came out with the last SEBI guidelines. I said, if you really feel so scared, or if you really doubt the promoters of valuation, you have your own panel of valuation valuers.
So they are proposing to a registration.
Like when you go for liquidation of a company, the liquidator has its own panel of auditors, and your company is getting audited by liquidators panel. So SEBI should also have their own panel of valuers, and let them also value the company. So you come with your valuation, SEBI comes with their valuation, and then let the company and the shareholder decide what valuation has to be adopted. You can't sit there and question it, friends. In a lighter vein, I always say that under the listing agreement, within 15 minutes of the board meeting, you are supposed to inform the stock exchange, whatever happens. I always tell this, and don't record this. I always say this, that a time will come when SEBI will say, hold board meeting in my office, or hold board meeting in Bombay Stock Exchange, and keep open your decision making to public. Thank you, friends.
Would you like to take some questions?
I thought questions are over.
Thank you, Dilip, for a wonderful exposition of the law, provisions of the law, also giving an insight of the concepts and practical aspects. Friends, Dilip in the beginning started with changed legislations like MRTP and FERA and FEMA and whatnot, and he stopped with the Companies Act. Further, probably we have DTC coming in place of income tax, GST coming in place of indirect taxes, and also IFRS, which may change the accounting concepts and auditing standards. In my office, in a lighter way, in my office, when my article student does not succeed in the exams, I tell them that don't worry, even if I give exams of the CA, I will also not succeed. My confession, my honest confession, they take it as a consolation. With these few words, I would request Nitin to give a very well-deserved vote of thanks. Thank you.
Friends, we will all agree that Mr. Nitin Poddar is really an authority on this merger acquisition, the way he has presented and the way he has casted the doubts which are going to come and the difficulties which we are going to face in the near future when this law becomes applicable and we go to NCLT. Right now we have a process of dispensing with the meeting, but then it looks like that all meetings are going to be really compulsory.
Yes.
And he has really taken us through this new concept which is going